I'm the genetics gal, and today I want to talk to you about p-values. I'd like to make a disclaimer first that I'm not a statistician. My studies have been very focused on genetics as of late, but I have taken advantage of many different stats classes at different points in my education and really been blessed by incredible stats instructors. And so I'd like to just offer a little bit of guidance. So I've seen that as I've been grading my students' essays that they turn in, they're like basically lab reports, they don't have a complete understanding of statistics. And actually this, they don't even have a basic understanding of how to talk about p-values and what this means about data interpretation. And it makes sense because they haven't really had very much stats education. It seems that biology doesn't emphasize statistics very much, at least in the institutions that I've been in, whereas for my psychology bachelor's degree, not only was some psychological statistics mandatory, but also there were just many options of stats classes. Nevertheless, biologists do use statistics. I can't say that I do very much statistics in my current job. Not too much of it is quantitative, although some of it. But statistics is incredibly important to really understand biology or any field. And so I'd like to point out a couple things. One is people talk about something being very statistically significant. And I can't say that I can explain like the complex statistics background to this. But my understanding is that we designate a cutoff of 0.05 for p-values. And we say that if it's less than that, it meets the cutoff. And if it's more than that, it doesn't. And so it seems that when people talk about very statistically significant, they talk as though that says something about the importance of the results, even though in actuality, you can get really tiny p-values by having extraordinary sample sizes. And I'm sure, as well as p-hacking, which is like a whole thing that I will definitely love to talk about in a future video. But I think also by saying very statistically significant, people also feel comfortable saying almost statistically significant. But again, we're saying that if it's less than 0.5, then we say that's within the, what we accept, what we've said ahead of time our statistics are going to be okay with. So I would suggest not using very, at least if I'm reading your paper. Another aspect that I'd like to talk about is people say this difference between the groups wasn't statistically significant, but there was this difference that we saw. And I understand that because when you have small sample sizes and you start to see something in the data, you might get excited about it and start figuring, well, if this trend continues, then maybe we will get statistical significance. Hopefully when you get the sample size you've decided ahead of time you'll get. But people talk as though, so if something's not statistically significant, but there seems to be this difference, what you're actually saying is that it's just as likely that the two groups, or it's very likely that we can't exclude that the difference between the two groups is due to random chance. See, it was hard for me to explain because these are very complex, and I'm tired after work. But they're complicated. So people start to interpret it's not significant, but as though it's something important. And I think that's another thing that's good to avoid. And then the last thing that I'd like to talk about is effect size. So effect size is basically just saying, okay, so it's statistically significant means that two groups are different. Effect size, on the other hand, talks about how different those two groups are. And so, yeah, maybe men and women differ in some aspect, and you have really large data sets, and so you were able to find statistical significance. But what if that difference is not actually meaningful or going to change like anything. So let's say you have these two different groups and you find there's a statistically significant difference in their heights. For men and women, I think that there really is quite a big difference, but whatever other comparison you might want to make. And so maybe these two groups, you measured like 5,000 people from each group, and you found there's a statistical difference in heights between these two groups. But that difference in height is like 4 millimeters. What effect does that have? Ooh, that's a timer. I always have timers going off. And so especially when people use p-values to justify, let's say, very expensive medicine, it's really important or adopting new techniques, or whatever it is, it's really important to understand, is this difference between the two groups actually worth all the extra expense, effort, legal issues? I mean, just like everything. Is it even worth caring about at all? Or is this a tiny effect that doesn't really matter? And so again, I want to say these concepts are really complex. I've talked about statistics for so many hours, throughout my life, and I, stumbled through trying to explain it. And in fact, I remember something that I learned in one of my psychological statistics classes. It was an anecdote where my professor had gone. Hopefully, I'm not telling the story too off, but my professor was at a conference, and they passed out this true-false test that tests people's understanding of p-values. And they got like 50% correct, like 50% on a true-false, and these are statisticians about p-values, which they're dealing with constantly. At least if they're hypothesis testing statisticians. Maybe there's like a bunch of statisticians that don't use p-values. But they got them like 50% right, because p-values are incredibly complex, so it's not surprising that you, who's just done a little bit of statistics here or there, taken a few classes, whatever, haven't quite grasped it 100%. But let's keep talking about it. Please tell me what concepts, especially in statistics right now, you would benefit from hearing explained in some sort of medium, and what kind of medium you'd like that explained, if you have any ideas, or what specific concepts you think are really cool, whatever you want me to discuss. All right, well, thank you very much for watching.